Doctor Who is not a show largely known for its romances, but audiences everywhere found enjoyment in the star-crossed romance between the 10th Doctor and Rose Tyler. Many people adored their cute dynamic and felt devastated when they were heartbreakingly ripped apart in the episode Doomsday. But what if I told you that 10 and Rose's romance has a dark side that was very deliberate on the part of the show? My name is Ellie Blackwood. I'm a fantasy and sci-fi writer in progress, and I am a massive fan of the 10th Doctor and Rose Tyler's romance, though not for the reason you might think. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into Doctor Who's most beloved romance, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll admit that I used to think 10 and Rose were kind of relationship goals. And to this day, despite being fascinated by their flaws, I genuinely enjoy watching their relationship play out on screen. But I also know that a lot of people have conflicting opinions about it, so whatever you think about 10 and Rose, be sure to leave your take in the comments. If you like videos about books, science fiction, Doctor Who, and all that goodness, be sure to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to keep up with all my projects and content, including getting access to my YouTube videos 3 days before anyone else, be sure to subscribe to my monthly newsletter, which you can find linked in the description. Now let's dive into 10 and Rose by actually not talking about 10 and Rose. We can't talk about the 10th Doctor and Rose's relationship without first talking about Rose's relationship with the previous incarnation of the Doctor. The 9th Doctor, as portrayed by Christopher Eccleston in 2005, was the first live-action incarnation of the Doctor to grace our screens since the ill-fated 1996 Doctor Who TV movie. And he was the first incarnation to get a full season since the classic version of the show was cancelled in 1989. The first episode of the show's 2005 revival reintroduced the Doctor as a lonely refugee, the sole survivor of a colossal time war that happened off-screen. The Time War was a conflict between the Doctor's people, the Time Lords, and their sworn enemies, the Daleks, and it threatened to engulf the entire universe. So to stop it, the Doctor set off a catastrophic weapon that killed all of the Daleks and all of the Time Lords except for him. The Doctor is left with deep cynicism, self-loathing, and guilt over what he did. But when he meets Rose Tyler, as played by Billie Piper, he begins to regain his sense of awe and wonder for the universe through her eyes. Rose, a 19-year-old shop girl from London, feels like she's stuck in a dead end. She never took her A-level exams, she still lives with her mum, and her retail job gets blown up within the first 5 minutes of the first episode. But she's intrigued by the Doctor, and she's determined to help him defeat the evil Autons who are menacing London, despite the Doctor's attempts to push her away. In the end, impressed by Rose's bravery, the Doctor invites her to travel through time and space with him in his ship, the TARDIS. While they do enjoy each other's company, 9 and Rose aren't entirely in harmony all of the time. On their first adventure off Earth, Rose demands to know more about where the Doctor comes from, and he reacts poorly at first because he doesn't want to revisit his trauma. But by the end of the episode, he manages to open up to her a bit about losing his people in the Time War. As the series goes on, Rose begins to act somewhat like the Doctor's moral compass, calling out his cruelty when he tries to kill a helpless Dalek out of hatred. Rose acts as a human foil to the Doctor's alien nature, pushing him to see things with more emotion and empathy. Even in an episode where Rose arguably makes a stupid mistake, trying to save her dead father and causing a universe-threatening paradox, the Doctor has to overcome his arrogance about humans and gain more empathy as he comes to understand her perspective. The Doctor and Rose's opposing natures come to the fore in the Series 1 finale. The Doctor plans to blow up the space station they're on in order to destroy a fleet of Daleks, and he sends Rose back to her own time against her will to protect her. Rose falls into deep despair and anger, not just because the Doctor tricked her, but because she doesn't have a sense of purpose unless she's traveling with him. You can't tell me Taylor Swift has never seen Doctor Who, because Down Bad was written about Rose Tyler and the Doctor, and I will not hear any other interpretation. To get back to the Doctor and save him, Rose looks into the heart of the TARDIS, absorbing all the power of the time vortex. This gives her the power to destroy all the Daleks without hurting any of the humans on the space station, and most importantly for her, without hurting the Doctor. But Rose's human body can't contain all that power without killing her, so the Doctor has to take the power into himself so he can redirect it back into the TARDIS. This causes irreparable damage to his own body, and he begins regenerating into his 10th incarnation. 9 and Rose's relationship is not necessarily portrayed as romantic in nature. You can certainly read into it if you want to, with perhaps the most obvious hints being the Doctor's jealousy when Rose Rose flirts with the charming futuristic criminal Captain Jack Harkness. The only overt romantic interaction they have is when Nine kisses Rose in order to remove the time vortex energy from her body and redirect it back into the TARDIS, which was arguably out of necessity. Personally, I thought it was a bit unnecessary to make it a kiss, but I guess the writer Russell T Davies is just a hopeless romantic. But Rose is certainly the most important person in the Doctor's life. After his actions in the Time War, the Doctor never thought he would be worthy of love again, but Rose cares about him so much that she risked her life to save him. On her end, Rose finds a huge sense of purpose traveling with the Doctor, and she gets so wrapped up in her adventures with him that she can't be happy doing anything else. This causes a lot of tension with her personal relationships on Earth, specifically with her mother Jackie and her on-again off-again boyfriend Mickey. I'll have more to say about Mickey later, but when the 9th Doctor regenerates into the 10th Doctor, as played by David Tennant, things start to get a little more complicated. Rose's relationship with the 10th Doctor gets off to a rocky start. In the short mini-sode Born Again and in the 2005 Christmas special The Christmas Invasion, Rose grapples with the sense that she's lost her best friend, and she only fully accepts Ten as the Doctor after he saves the day from the Sycorax. After this initial wobble, Ten and Rose have a much less conflict-heavy relationship than Nine and Rose did. They genuinely have tons of fun together, and I think the reason why so many people love their relationship is because their joy at being near each other shines in this season. While Nine and Rose often clashed because of Nine not understanding Rose's human nature, Ten is very human himself. His people and culture are all gone, and he needs something new to base his identity around, so he goes with the only thing that's been keeping him anchored since the Time War. That is, Rose Tyler. Because Ten centers so much of himself on Rose, there's a clear pattern throughout this season where he goes absolutely ballistic if Rose's safety is threatened. Ten is hesitant about verbally expressing his love for Rose to her face, probably because he knows they can't really be together. He wants to keep things uncomplicated because he knows it will break him if he ever loses her. When Ten is rappelling into the unknown in the episode The Satan Pit, he almost tells one of the space base crew members to pass on to Rose that he loves her, but he cuts himself off with the excuse that she already knows. But when he faces down the fearsome entity the Beast, he doesn't hold back in expressing his admiration for Rose in a way that he would probably never say to her face, with the line, "I've seen fake gods and bad gods and demigods and would-be gods, and out of all that, out of that whole pantheon, if I believe in one thing, just one thing, I believe in her." For her part, Rose was already lost in the whirlwind of traveling with the Doctor. Her reaction to the 9th Doctor sending her home in the Series 1 finale shows that she doesn't have a sense of purpose unless she's in the TARDIS by the Doctor's side. But with this new incarnation, once she gets over her hesitance about him, her feelings for him turn explicitly romantic pretty fast. In the episode New Earth, when the Lady Cassandra takes over Rose and the Doctor's bodies, she notes that she can tell Rose is attracted to the Doctor's new form. And in the episode School Reunion, Rose at first acts super jealous of the Doctor's old companion Sarah Jane Smith when she realizes the Doctor has traveled with other people before, though Rose and Sarah Jane quickly make up and become friends. Rose soon becomes a lot more secure in her relationship with the Doctor, and in the episode Army of Ghosts, when he asks how long she's going to stay with him, she doesn't hesitate in responding forever. Overall, Ten and Rose are massively codependent. Ten is dependent on her because he heavily built his identity post-Time War around Rose, and Rose is dependent on him because she feels like her life didn't have much of a point until she met the Doctor. And that's exacerbated by the fact that humans who travel with the Doctor always end up on the disadvantaged end of their power imbalance, given that the Doctor is a super intelligent immortal alien. The question of whether it's problematic to have a fictional portrayal of a 19 or 20-year-old human falling in love with a 900-year-old immortal alien is beyond the scope of this video. This is a trope that appears in a lot of fantasy and science fiction, and whether or not it's harmful is difficult to parse out because this isn't something that can happen in real life. These depictions aren't likely to encourage real young people to seek out unhealthy relationships with 900-year-old Time Lords who look deceptively close to their own age, because Time Lords don't exist in real life. I'm not trying to dismiss anyone who finds this trope uncomfortable, I'm just saying it's complicated. But regardless of your thoughts on the sci-fi age gap, it's pretty clear to me that Ten and Rose's relationship isn't healthy, and that would be true even if they were the same same age. Another common criticism of Ten and Rose is their sense of arrogance. There are several scenes in the show where they face up to dangerous situations with a flippancy that can feel a bit callous for the people in danger. Of course, this flippancy doesn't last once the Doctor and Rose get sucked into the danger themselves, but it's not hard for some viewers to get the sense that Ten and Rose think they're indestructible. It's totally fair for some people to just not like that aspect of their characters, but personally, I think that Ten and Rose's cockiness is an important part of their dynamic. The two of them care about each other more than anything else in the world, and as long as they're together, how bad can it really be? They both feel entitled to this life of adventure with each other, but they're deluding themselves, and it will all soon come crashing down. But before we get to that, there's another person we have to address. No discussion of the Doctor and Rose's relationship would be complete without tackling the subject of Mickey Smith, Rose's on-again, off-again boyfriend. Side note that when I make story analysis videos like this, I don't treat the character and the actor as in any way connected, so I absolutely don't condone the things Noel Clarke has been accused of doing, just so we're clear. Mickey is the butt of the joke for most of his time on the show. He's shown as kind of a loser, Rose speaks dismissively about him from the start, and the Doctor instantly dislikes him and keeps getting his name wrong on purpose. I'm not saying Mickey is a perfect person or a perfect boyfriend to Rose. He has a line or two in the first episode that could be read as a bit sexist toward her, though I would argue that's not unusual for a show from 2005, and he's wary of her looking at his emails, which implies maybe he's doing something behind her back that she wouldn't like. But to me, none of that justifies how awfully Rose treats Mickey. Rose expects that Mickey will always be there for her, even though she's gone on her adventures with the Doctor most of the time. When she returns one time to find he's been seeing someone else, she reacts badly, and Mickey is completely correct to point out that at least he knows where his new girlfriend is. But, as Mickey also points out, he'll always come running back to Rose even though she doesn't seem to give a crap about him. This gets even worse once the 9th Doctor regenerates into the 10th Doctor and the relationship between Rose and Ten becomes explicitly romantic. After Mickey alerts the Doctor and Rose to a group of aliens trying to take over a school and helps them save the day, the Doctor's old companion Sarah Jane Smith talks them into letting Mickey travel in the TARDIS with them. Rose is reluctant about this, obviously because she wants to be able to gallivant around with her Time Lord crush without her boyfriend in the way. Oh yeah, this entire time, Rose and Mickey had never explicitly broken up. The nature of their relationship is a bit hazy for most of the show. The Doctor refers to Mickey as Rose's boyfriend as late as the episode School Reunion, though he might have been joking. But I would argue that the lack of clarity around their relationship status is another way that this whole situation is super unfair to Mickey. Rose is perfectly happy to keep things ambiguous so she can have her cake and eat it too. She can go on adventures with the Doctor and always have Mickey waiting for her when she gets back. When the TARDIS team visits an alternate dimension and Mickey's alternate self gets killed, Mickey finds the courage to stay in the alternate world and lead the resistance group that his double was a part of. Thus, Mickey's time with the Doctor has proven to him that he can be brave and he can fight for something he believes in, and he doesn't have to sit around waiting for Rose to give him the time of day anymore. But even though Mickey ends up finding himself through his adventures with the Doctor and Rose, none of that excuses how horribly Rose treated him. Rose's relationship with Mickey exemplifies just how selfish she can be, and just how entitled she feels to have adventures with the Doctor without a care for people in her personal life. But Rose's glorious time in the TARDIS is about to come to an end. The finale of the second series of Doctor Who, Doomsday, is held up as one of the most devastating episodes of the entire show. It actually features on several lists of the saddest TV episodes ever. In this finale, the Doctor and Rose have to fight off a sinister cult of Daleks and an army of Cybermen who have broken through from a parallel world. They successfully manage to send all the Daleks and Cybermen into the void between universes, but in the process, Rose ends up trapped in the alternate universe with no way back to the Doctor. Before the breach between universes can fully close, the Doctor uses the power of an exploding star to project an image of himself to the alternate Earth to say goodbye to Rose. Rose tearfully admits that she loves him, but before the Doctor can say it back, the connection closes and they are lost to each other forever. No summary can convey just how devastating this episode is, so if you haven't seen it, I would highly encourage you to just go and watch the show yourself. It's just 2 relatively short seasons to get the full effect, I promise. But to me, this episode is all the more devastating devastating because of the existing character work between the Doctor and Rose. You'd think that it would be at least partly satisfying to see an unhealthy relationship getting broken apart, but it's not. Aside from the fact that there's plenty to like about Ten and Rose, and a lot of people want to see them together in spite of their flaws, the two of them didn't learn anything from this. It would be one thing if they reckoned with their issues of their own volition, but instead they're suddenly ripped apart and left completely adrift. Neither of them knows who they are without the other, and that means we're in for some more mess. After Ten and Rose say their last goodbye, the 10th Doctor is crushed. He doesn't know how to independently manage his all-too-human emotions, so he needs to travel with another human to be complete. But not just any human, he specifically wants Rose. When Ten begins traveling with medical student Martha Jones, he constantly puts her down and compares her to Rose, which is made even worse by the fact that Ten knows Martha has a crush on him. While Martha puts up with way more crap from the Doctor than he deserves to get away with, she eventually stands up to him and leaves the TARDIS for her own mental health. This causes Ten to gain a bit of self-awareness. His friendship with his next companion, Donna Noble, manages to stay uncomplicated and more healthy, though he still mourns the loss of Rose. In the case of Rose, this period of her life isn't really filled out on screen. All we really know is that Rose joins her universe's version of the alien fighting organization Torchwood to put the knowledge and skills from her time in the TARDIS to good use. But a few years after her separation from the Doctor, the Daleks start experimenting with a reality bomb that threatens to wipe out entire universes. When the alternate Earth's Torchwood builds a dimension cannon to hop between universes and try and stop the destruction of the multiverse, Rose volunteers to test it. Just as Ten burned up a star to say goodbye to Rose, Rose takes advantage of a collapsing universe to find her way back to him. And what happened next was pretty divisive among the show's viewers. To the Doctor's delight, Rose has arrived in his dimension again to help him fight the Daleks, but unfortunately he knows she can't stay. Fortunately, there might be a way that he can sort of stay with her. Through a Time Lord human biological metacrisis that would be beyond the scope of this video to explain, the Doctor's companion Donna Noble accidentally creates a human version of the Doctor. He's an exact replica of the 10th Doctor, he's just biologically human, and he's lacking some of the Doctor's character development. When the Doctor and his friends team up to fight the Daleks, they prevent the reality bomb from going off, but the Metacrisis Doctor takes it a step further by destroying every single Dalek in existence. Of course, one Dalek ship survives and the Daleks come back because they always do, but for the purposes of this episode, the Metacrisis Doctor just wiped out an entire species. An incredibly messed up species engineered for hatred and destruction, but an entire species nonetheless. This is greatly disturbing to the real Doctor, and it reminds him of the amount of hatred he felt right after the Time War. So what better way to make sure the Metacrisis Doctor gets the same character development as the real Doctor than to leave him on the parallel Earth with the same person? As the Doctor tells Rose, he needs you. That's very me. Rose obviously isn't too thrilled about being left in the alternate universe with the Metacrisis Doctor. After all, the Metacrisis Doctor isn't really the Doctor, right? Rose tests the Doctors by asking how the Doctor's cut-off sentence when they last said goodbye was supposed to end, and while the real Doctor refuses to answer, the Metacrisis Doctor whispers the answer in her ear, and we can pretty easily guess what he said. It's not that the real Doctor didn't want to tell Rose that he loves her. Rather, he only wanted her to hear the truth from the Metacrisis Doctor, the one who can actually be with her. As much as it kills him, he knows it's better for him and Rose not to be together, and he wants her to be with someone she can actually keep forever. He's finally gained the self-awareness to know that he shouldn't burn down everything to be with Rose. He's started to learn who he is without Rose, and even though it's painful, that has to continue. The Metacrisis Doctor and Rose have not yet returned to the show, and I doubt they ever will, so we don't really know what happened to them aside from some conflicting accounts in expanded media. So you can take whatever storyline you like from expanded media or any number of fanfics. If you're going the fanfic route and you're over 18, I would recommend The Win by Night by Tripwire Alarm. The show's ending for the Doctor and Rose is pretty divisive among Doctor Who fans. Some are comforted by the knowledge that Rose and a version of the Doctor did get to be together forever, while some believe it's a cop-out. Personally, while I think it's a bit convenient, and while I wouldn't be mad if it didn't happen, I also don't think it takes away from Ten and Rose's story. It just gives Rose Rose and a human version of Ten the time to figure out what a version of their relationship looks like that can last. As for the real Doctor, it takes a lot of really unhealthy coping mechanisms in his next couple of incarnations before he learns to deal with the grief of losing people in a healthy way. But that's a story for another time. Overall, the 10th Doctor and Rose well and truly left their mark on Doctor Who and on pop culture as a whole, but I believe that idolizing their relationship as nothing more than a cute, wholesome romance is kind of missing the point. Ten and Rose are cute, but they're also codependent and messy and selfish. And that's why I think they're so great to watch. Complicated characters are compelling characters, after all. Speaking of complicated characters, I have a bunch of thoughts in the pipeline about the Doctor's overall character arc, which you saw a glimpse of as I discussed Ten and Rose here. So be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss my upcoming video essays about Doctor Who and about sci-fi in general. You can also subscribe to my newsletter at the link in the description to get access to all my YouTube videos 3 days early. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.